Live. Welcome back to Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am with my fresh haircut. Let me get on the full cam over here on the UBiest of Tubiest. Yes, indeed, we are back and live here on Talk Live. Thank you very much for joining me. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And yes, sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTLK.com. But I'm wearing the Psycho Bunny apparel tonight because, it just feels good. Just felt good all day, quite simply. And I said, let me carry it on into the night. So shout out to Psycho Bunny. But let's get it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here. Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Hope you had a very good long weekend. It was a long weekend here in Canada, Victoria Day. Hope you enjoyed the fireworks. Hope you enjoyed the barbecues. Hope you enjoyed the unofficial start to summer, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. And it was, a very good weekend for me. Did some work, but also had some playtime as I did yesterday. Shout out to my man Junior Jones and his R&B room. And it was, it was really, really well attended. I really enjoyed myself yesterday. So that was a really nice time out. I haven't been out for a little while, so I said, you know what? Let me cut a rug. Let me just skirt the tiles with a bit of Junior Jones, and that was well done yesterday. So shout out to my man Junior. But we are back here on Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Shout out to Junior as well. We'll be there for the all white coming soon, ladies and gentlemen. So again, the only all white you need to attend. So back to it. Yes, we are back here at Talk Live. We're talking about the Diddy trial. Diddy do it. Yes, back with the fresh new fade and cut and ready to go. Well, no Diddy. Ready to go into these next few days. Days 7 to 11. We're going to have a little recap, ladies and gentlemen, because we are away for a couple of days. So we're just going to have a little recap here of the Diddy trial. And also, we're going to have a little slant on Cassie's testimony and how indeed it impacts men to her testimony, ladies and gentlemen, because again, but we'll talk about it a little later. But right now, it's all about trial recap. So let me get onto the browser here, Bish Bash Bosh, and make sure that we are back and underway over here. So we're back here with TMZ with Diddy in court days, I say 9 through 11. But just recalling, the last time we had joined each other, it was Cassie on the stand. She was just finishing up her testimony, her second day of full testimony. Do remember that Cassie Ventura is the star witness for the prosecution. So again, a lot of the charges that are laid upon Sean Puffy Combs is through the testimony of Cassie Ventura and many others who have yet to be called to the stand. But again, Cassie Ventura is the key witness. So again, she is in need of giving her a good story. She did that, and now we are here to discuss. What has gone on over the next subsequent days. Now, I think she was just at last point. She was just finishing up her cross-examination from the defense, where a lot were revealed with regards to her sex life. A lot was revealed with regards to her time with Diddy. And it wasn't all bad as indicated. They were a couple, and they were together for at least 3-4 years until the alleged bad times. But Diddy was saying that, you know what, she went into these things eyes open. She went into these things full bore, and quite simply, she wasn't exactly a victim in these crimes. She wasn't exactly held against her will with these crimes. She made these choices herself. She organized some freak-offs herself. So again, it was to say that Diddy was the defense wanted to say that Diddy was not the ultimate orchestrator of most of these freak-offs. A lot of them were organized by Cassie Ventura herself. And now we're going to do some recap with our friends from TMZ. Day 9 through 11, so stay tuned, and also we'll have a little bit of a veer off with regards to Cassie and her testimony in court and how it affects how it does affect men everywhere. So stay tuned for that. So let's get into this right now through TMZ. Thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live, sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTLK.com. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into this right now with Diddy.
Battery 90%.
1 second, guys. Here we go.
Of testimony from Cassie Ventura, who is Diddy's longtime girlfriend. They had an 11-year relationship. This is a very, very complicated case because the relationship was so long. In a lot of criminal cases, Jason, you have a single incident, a precipitating moment that you're deciding, did this happen? Can we prove that this happened to the jury? Here we have an 11-year relationship that they're trying to build a case against Diddy, that the relationship was so filled with violence and coercion and nasty things that Diddy was such a monster that she felt compelled to relent to his demands for freak-offs, other sexual acts, and so forth. It's a very, very complicated case. So we thought it would be instructive now that she is still being cross-examined, but her testimony will wrap up maybe by today, if not early next week, just to take a step back and figure out what is the defense trying to do on cross-examination of Cassie to refute or rebut what the prosecution laid out in its case in chief, which shows Diddy to be a horrific, horrific monster.
Okay, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard from our experts there on TMZ, let me see here, just to, because I did Google this. I did Google this, who's on Behind the Bar. Jason Beckerman and Derek Kaufman doing wonderful work with the Diddy trial recap. But indeed, Cassie was the star witness. Cassie wanted to paint Diddy as the ultimate monster, as the ultimate culprit in most of these crimes, the ultimate Svengali, organizer of the freak-offs and drug use and days of sex. And well, they're painting Diddy to be the villain. But again, the defense would have their time and say. And the defense was going to say that through an 11-year relationship, I couldn't believe it myself. Diddy and Cassie were together for 11 years. That is longer than most marriages. That is longer than a lot of relationships out there. So again, they had intimate knowledge of each other, intimate knowledge of each other's likes and dislikes, and intimate knowledge of each other's alleged drug use. Do paint a picture with that, ladies and gentlemen. But again, it was a torrid time between the two of them. But again, the prosecution and their examination in chief of Cassie Ventura is trying to show that Diddy is indeed a monster. Diddy is indeed the one who coerced Cassie into most of these freak-offs, most of these examples of these nights of prostitution, nights with prostitutes. Most of these nights of literal drug use for days of freak-offs. So again, it was, and now it came to the defense. And as I explained, the defense's part in this now is to paint Diddy as not as a monster, but Diddy as indeed a loving man, a man who though flawed, did care about Diddy, did care about Cassie. Wanted to see the best for her, wanted to do as she wished and as she pleased. And what pleased her was indeed the freak-offs. So let's get into that right now with regards to what the defense's case in terms of his cross-examination and how they wanted to discredit the testimony of Cassie Ventura. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so the prosecutors have effectively laid out, Derek, that in this case, that Diddy was a monster. The testimony of Cassie has been overwhelming. From all indications for people inside the courtroom, she has come off as credible, that she really was victimized by this man for a long time. He beat her. He dehumanized her with sex acts that, whether or not she was initially eager or willing to participate in, she became less and less willing over time. Tried to express that to him. It sort of fell on deaf ears. He also secretly recorded their sex acts, sometimes secretly, sometimes not secretly recorded their sex acts. But however he recorded them, he then threatened to send them to her friends and family when she would begin to suggest that maybe she didn't want to continue to be in this relationship with him, or at least have the nature of the relationship remain like it was. He beat her physically quite badly on a number of occasions. He allegedly, she says, firebombed Kid Cudi's car because she was potentially starting a flirtation with Kid Cudi, a relationship with
Jealousy is
Kid
infused
Cudi.
throughout their relationship on both sides,
Yes.
even by her own admission.
Yes, but he carried out that jealousy through some vicious beatings and allegedly firebombing this car.
The threat to release video.
As revealed here on Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen, yes, indeed. Do remember, Kid Cudi's car was, blown up allegedly by Diddy and his cohorts. That's what Cassie Ventura was saying in her testimony, that Diddy's jealous streak went to such lengths that any sort of budding relationship Diddy would cut out from the source, and Diddy had a very jealous streak, and it made its way into different relationships, different budding relationships. Cassie had with indeed Kid Cudi and indeed Michael B. Jordan. As soon as Diddy caught wind of that, those relationships were soon and very soon, swept aside. Quite simply, let's go into it.
Videos has become a very prominent part of the prosecution's case as well.
But in this point is so frustrating, both for us, but especially for people who aren't sort of immersed as you and I are often in the law and the way these trials go along. It's very frustrating, but he is not charged with a single one of the crimes that I just outlined. He's not charged with domestic violence. He is not charged with secretly recording her. He's not charged with extorting her for the secret recording. He's not charged with any of that. So as much of a monster as he is, everything that I just laid out is not enough to get a conviction. And maybe that can be frustrating with the system, the way it works, the prosecutors, whatever.
Those are state crimes.
Those are state crimes. He's not charged in this federal case with those.
Indeed, very important point there made there by Beckerman and Kaufman is the fact that Diddy's not charged with domestic violence. Diddy's not charged with coercion. Diddy's not charged with assault. Diddy's not charged with any of these things. Those indeed are state crimes. What Diddy is charged with is creating an illegal enterprise, a crime organization through the transportation of prostitutes across state lines to participate in these free calls. That is the federal case here. So do remember that. We are not gonna. In terms of his domestic violence, in terms of his Svengali traits, in terms of his abuse, in terms of his coercion, in terms of any of these things that that Cassie has said about his character and about his displays of violence against Cassie, he's not charged for that. That would come up in a state case. And so do remember that delineation. Do remember that separation here. That is not the case of the feds. The feds' case is literally to get this man for racketeering, prostitution, and bringing creating a criminal organization for an illegal enterprise, which were the freak off. So let's continue.
Instead, what the prosecution has to do is establish that she felt coerced into committing illegal sex acts with him, predominantly sex with prostitutes, coerced into illegal sex acts by virtue of his conduct, for fear that she would pay either a financial price, a physical price, whatever price it might be. She had to be coerced into these illegal sex acts. And the defense has spent the last 2 days trying to establish she was not coerced, something she wanted to do. And even if she didn't necessarily want to do it, she didn't do it because of this coercion to do it, legal coercion. What does the defense try to do? Lay this out for us.
It's a perfect encapsulation.
So indeed, very good point. Again, the defense was trying to show that Cassie wasn't under duress. Duress is when you have unmitigated pressure against you to do something that you do not want to do. Again, the defense wanted to show that Cassie made these decisions to be a part of these free cops, to partly organize these free cops, and at times fully organize these free cops simply for her sexual predilections. Nothing more, nothing less. And to say that she's an innocent party in these freak offs is the defense is saying That would be a lie. She was a full participant in these freak-offs, and actually one of these freak-offs through text messages already seen. She has said herself that she was excited in certain respects for participating in these freak-offs. So to show that Cassie wasn't exactly a babe in the woods and wasn't exactly coerced into performing these sex acts on these prostitutes. Let's continue.
They are attacking this nexus. They are not going after her testimony about the violence that she endured. They're not going after whether these things happened. What they're saying is they happened for different reasons than coercing her into commercial sex acts, because they know, these defense attorneys, that that's what needs to be proven to convict him for sex trafficking, that he did it to keep her performing these sex acts. So they're willing to concede, because I think they have to, that there was violence, but that the violence was for other reasons, for jealous rages, for anger about Cassie potentially stealing drugs from Diddy,
stealing his cell phone, which may have had
things
text
from him.
messages with another woman, all this stuff. But this is not relating to, according to the defense, relating to the sex.
And the way they're doing that.
Very good point raised there. Again, all these devious acts that Diddy's accused of, he's not being charged for. Do remember, this is simply put, that is a state case. If you want the domestic violence, if you want the coercion, if you want the sexual assault, the SA, quite simply, because I don't want to get nailed here. If you wanted the R word, for lack of a better word, that will be found in the state case. It would not be found here. What we're finding here is that Diddy was the hub of a RICO organization. Diddy was a part of bringing across is to be charged with prostitution, and he was in charge of bringing over those prostitutes across state lines to participate in these freak-offs, and therefore making it a federal case. All right, do remember that again. Let's go.
That is through showing this 11-year relationship in text messages. That's what they have in terms of concrete evidence. So what they opened their cross with was a lot of loving text messages at the beginning of their relationship. I love you, smiley face. I'll fly anywhere for you, showing how into Diddy she was. I'm not sure this gets them very far. All relationships, even ones that end in disastrous violence, start off pretty loving. So I'm not sure how far that gets you, but they're trying to humanize Diddy somewhat, as what he was hearing from Cassie sounded like a lot of affirmation, sounded like a lot of consent and enthusiasm for the things that they were doing.
Not just affirmation. Yes, that's the point. It showed that she was really into this stuff at first.
And do remember, Cassie left her ex-boyfriend, Mr. Leslie, right, in order to start up a relationship with Diddy. So Mr. Leslie. Let me just get his full name here, guys. Just a second. Yeah. Ex-boyfriend. There we go. And that was Ryan Leslie. Yes, Ryan Leslie. Ryan Leslie. Sorry about this, guys. Yeah, we'll get back to it. Ryan Leslie was indeed left by. There we go. Ryan Leslie was indeed Cassie's ex, and he was 10 years older. And he, as a result, seeing Diddy and seeing him appear on the scene, basically, he was seen as yesterday's news as soon as Diddy appeared on the scene, and she would run away for different getaways. And would shirk the relationship that she had with Ryan Leslie to start up with Diddy. So she, yes indeed. Hello, Anderson de Buyes. Hello, sir. How are you, sir? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. So again, Cassie wasn't exactly, and hello from Ecuador. Oh, thank you very much for joining me for Talk Live here tonight. So Ryan Leslie was indeed Cassie's ex, and she left him for Diddy. So, and they had a very good relationship for the first 2 to 3 years, and where she and the text messages showed they loved each other. They couldn't wait to see each other. they had they couldn't wait to. It was basically a very very um, golden age for their relationship. It wasn't exactly all doom and gloom as presupposed by Cassie in her examination in chief. Let's continue.
She was soliciting these freak offs. She may say, initially at least, that it was because she wanted to make him happy or whatever it was, but it was consensual, fully consensual. She was not being coerced. I don't think there's any argument that initially she was ever coerced into these acts. She wanted to do them.
I think that's right. Now, they really honed in yesterday on this exchange between Cassie and Diddy after their first freak off. So at some point, the first freak off she described in her opening testimony happened when she was 22. So you're around 2008 or 2009. She described that she felt humiliated and confused, nasty feelings inside. And they're contrasting that with what she wrote to him in text messages afterwards, one of which was, "I'm always ready to freak off. It can be whenever." So if you're in Diddy's head, it's not necessarily that he's saying, let's do a freak off and should be able to read the cues that she's not into it. At times, she was texting him that she was down for these things. So a reasonable person might receive those text messages and say, I think she's into it. And that's what they're trying to establish.
But even if they can't establish that, Derek, I think to the point that we were making at the top, they have to show this coercion, not just that she was coerced because she wanted to appeal to him, not just she was coerced because she thought she'd be okay with it and mustered the strength.
But she was scared.
They had to show that she was scared or that he was threatening her. And at this point in the relationship, it comes later, don't get me wrong, but at this point, there's no allegation that he was threatening her with her career, with anything like that, in exchange for the sex.
That's right. And
there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It shows that, indeed, Cassie wanted these freak offs. She's she was a co-conspirator in these freak offs. She was down for what quote, down for whatever for these freak offs. So it's nothing that Cassie didn't warn for herself. She really wanted to be a participant, especially for the first few years of these freak offs. So to say that she was an unwilling participant and that she was coerced and that she was scared for her life to participate, and thus she did. The defense, did prove through the text messages that she was not a babe in the woods when it came to these freak offs. Let's continue.
That is what you're seeing in terms of the way they're cross-examining her. They're asking her about the swinger lifestyle. We heard this in his opening statements. We were swingers. So they've asked Cassie, what does that mean? Were you in a swinger lifestyle? And she has acknowledged on the stand, and I think this goes to her credibility. She says, yes, we were swingers. And that is a sexual sort of lifestyle, but she was careful to say, but that's different than these freak-offs. So Cassie is hip to what the defense is trying to establish. She has been very well prepared by the prosecutors that this is going to be a wedge they're looking for. And she's saying the swinger lifestyle is one thing, and I was down for that. The freak-offs became very abusive. So I think she's doing a good job of, sort of sustaining these blows on the stand in certain ways. But the defense is getting some testimony. And I thought one other exchange was very, very illustrative. There was an exchange about a freak-off that occurred around the summer of 2017. This is long into the relationship.
Now the prosecutor is trying to establish she's very much being coerced into these freak-offs this late.
That's right. At that point in time, Cassie has testified that she was not into these things. Now, this exchange is about Diddy texting Cassie for permission. He says, do I have permission to set up some freaky fun, indicating that he wants to have a freak off. Her response was one word, and we're really teasing this all apart. She said ovulation. Now, some would interpret that as, no, I'm fertile right now. I don't want to have sex with a prostitute.
Right.
I could have,
That's the only real
logical read of that. It's not as if a married couple saying, yeah, you're ovulating, let's have kids. She was saying no. Yeah. Diddy then persisted in asking, okay, well, can we just kiss a lot? To which Cassie responded, yes. So Diddy's team is setting up this exchange as far from forcing sex upon her. What I did was take the no of we're not going to have sex, and then I modified what the freak off would be. Can we just kiss for a while? And Cassie was on board with that. They're trying to establish this as clear evidence that there was consent. I think on redirect, what you're going to hear is this kind of exchange shows just how scared she was. Just how scared she was to say no overall.
That's right. And not only that, you know, anecdotally, we've heard about horror stories where women are like terrified in a situation, but they don't know how to get out of it. And so they consent in quotes, to kissing or some sort of petting, but sex, they draw the line there because they just want to diffuse the situation, don't want to be victimized by this person. So they allow themselves to sort of assert consent over certain acts, but not the worst stuff they really don't want to be a part of at all.
And this goes to, you know, the expression is often heard, and I love this expression, things can cut both ways. You can read this as a text message and say, well, looked like she was consenting. What was Diddy supposed to think? He's like, I asked if we could just kiss, and she said yes. It's not clear which is correct. Text messages are very hard to read tone. What I'm wondering is, how is this landing with a jury of reasonable people? Does this exchange in particular seem like Cassie could have been clearer with her tormentor, or that she was clear enough and he was sort of willfully blind that she didn't want to do it?
I want to make 2 points in response to your question. The first is, when we had Kirsten Brown Neal on early on, sex crimes prosecutor here in LA County, she said that the prosecution wants men and not necessarily women in the jury box. And the reason is because women can be harsher on women in these sorts of situations. They can say, well, you should have, instead of doing that, you should have done that. Whereas men
will say, hey, no real man hits a woman.
Exactly.
No real man would do this
exactly.
to someone like
Women can be harder on women than men can be on women. And by the way, the jury is 8 men and 4 women. The prosecution was more than happy to allow a lot of men on the stand in the jury box for this exact reason. So I think this might really cut against him, that there are all these men sort of looking at this going, what the hell are you talking about? But then the other point,
to raise a point against that, a lot of men may be accepted by the defense. And I think the defense may have agreed to this simply because of the day and age that we live in. A lot of men may be potentially red pilled. A lot of men may understand, gender dynamics, and may be hip to the game of, is it no, is it yes, or what were things coerced or not. So it can cut both ways in a sense. I do understand that men may be in a protective mode in saying that a woman may not be accepting of any advances of Cassie, and in turning down Diddy, especially for that ovulation piece, a man should have accepted that and kept Cassie's wishes. But certain men would say, you know what, if you insist on the kissing thing and coerce on certain things, then then you come into a gray area there. So where consent is not exactly where consent is a bit blurred, to be fair and frank. So again, it can cut both ways, especially from the jury and from that testimony of going into it near the 10th year of their relationship, where freak-offs were allegedly frowned upon, yet certain segments of them were not. So again, this is something that can cut both ways, and can show and can give the defense a bit more leeway in terms of showing that Cassie, though not exactly hype about Freak Offs weren't anymore, were still intrigued as to some of its elements. Let's continue.
He has 4 women, and he only needs to really convince one that, Cassie, you could have done a better job of getting out of this relationship. I'm a woman too, and I would have walked away. There's right. Someone on that jury that at least defense counsel thinks they placed who they'll be able to convince.
Right. Now, obviously, that remains to be seen, and jurors are under a lot of pressure to come to a consensus. But the bigger point that I think Diddy is saddled with is that if the prosecution can give the jurors enough, not everything they want to get them, but enough to suggest that there's a conviction here, that you can find him guilty, there is so much atmospheric bad crap that he has done to her, so much abuse. The testimony is horrific that the jurors might say, you know what, I'm not quite sure if the prosecutors achieved every element to that crime, but I'm not going to worry about that. This guy needs to be in prison.
And look, that is the prosecution's approach. Is it's cumulative. They're just throwing the kitchen sink, and oftentimes you'll feel the defense counsel will say things like, "This is just cumulative evidence. You can't. It's starting to prejudice us against Diddy." But it's really the way they need to prove their case because they don't have the one smoking gun.
Right.
They need to prove.
They don't have a text message saying, if you don't have a freak off, I will show this video to your family. There's not even a trial.
That's right.
Diddy has pled at this point.
That's right.
But that doesn't exist, so they've got to do it through this.
And the judge will give them latitude to do so.
Yes.
That's the nature of their case. So he's giving them a lot of breadth of the ability, a wide berth to prove their case in this way. And I think it's ultimately going to be very damaging to Diddy. One thing that was brought up, I wanted to...
Very good point raised there by Beckerman and Kaufman is the sense that this is a death by 1,000 cuts prosecution here on the part of the U.S. Attorney's Office. They want to load up Diddy with so much evidence that something's got to stick and a conviction's got to be had in some way, shape, or form. Remember, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the U.S. Federal Attorney's Office, have a 98% conviction rate. They are, when they go into a case, they go in to win, and usually they do. More often than not, they do. A 98% win rate is outstanding, to be fair and frank. And so again, the U.S. Attorney's Office has such an accumulation of evidence against Diddy that it is hoped by the U.S. Attorney's Office that some of it sticks and he gets time for doing it. But then again, you know, the defense's job is to cast that little bit of doubt so that there is a mistrial, if not a lack of conviction, and Diddy gets to go home a free man. So again, it is that sort of dogfight that we're in here. But the U.S. Attorney's Office has a whole mountain of evidence. They have a lot of witnesses here, a lot of testimony to go through, and it is hoped that this is indeed a scenario where Diddy dies by 1,000 cuts here. Let's continue. And the deepest cut, of course, is Cassie Ventura. Let's go.
Before we ended was there was a line of questioning of Cassie after the 2018 closure dinner. They had a closure dinner where she says it was a little weird. He was acting odd. And subsequent to that dinner, he raped me. Yeah. That is her testimony. She says they're asking, what did you tell the prosecutors and the authorities when you were describing this event to them? And she said that she wondered whether his behavior that night was attributable to bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
By raising the issue of Diddy being addled by some sort of psychological illness like this, what does that do for his case?
Well, I mean, it potentially goes to his mental state and whether or not he actually intended to commit the crimes for which he's charged.
Which you need to prove in every criminal case.
You must show that he intended to.
Except for statutory rape and things like that.
I'm not sure that dog hunts here. I really don't. His acts are so purposeful over such a long period of time. Not to say that he couldn't be bipolar the whole time, but I just don't. I just can't see a juror being persuaded that he was out of his mind when he.
That you can conduct that for 11 years.
Right.
Yes. Right. I think it won't ultimately work, but they're trying everything. Look, they've got to defend him, so they're going to attack his mental state, and they're going to try to establish that he wasn't in his right mind when he's behaving this way. But I'm with you. 11-year relationship, you can't lean on that.
So
very good point raised there by Kaufman and Beckerman. It's going to be very, very tough to show that Diddy was out of his mind, was mentally incompetent by reason of insanity, in order for to show that Diddy, really did not did these crimes outside of his own wherewithal and thought and craft of and ingenuity of his own. I think Diddy indeed was in his right mind while doing these certain things, and sometimes he crossed the line, but sometimes he as the defense are trying to show, he had a co-conspirator in Cassie Ventura. However, it'd be very difficult to show that Diddy was there had diminished responsibility by reason of insanity. That's the charge I was trying to show. By reason of insanity, and thus would have these charges be thrown out simply because Diddy was not thinking clearly when committing these crimes, alleged crimes. Let's continue.
Let's go to a few questions. Polo FSCO, I don't know how to pronounce that. It says, you do realize Cassie only has circumstantial evidence. It's her word against Sean Combs. First, a couple things.
This sounds like a dirty word. It's the way most cases are.
But it's also, circumstantial evidence means the absence of eyewitness evidence. There is definitely eyewitness testimony here, both from Cassie. You're going to hear additional witnesses come forward. Former employees of Diddy's named Mia is going to come forward, and that person is going to testify that they witnessed certain things. I think what you're getting at, though, which is a good point, is there's not that smoking gun text message that we were talking about. And Diddy's counsel is going to make a lot of hay. They're going to say, look, they sent each other thousands of text messages. Where's the one? Yes. Even one that he sent where he actually cajoled her or coerced her into a sex act. Not one.
That's right.
You're going to say, so therefore, maybe it didn't happen. You know, that's
the absence of that one smoking gun will weigh on some jurors' minds.
So it is not a circumstantial evidence case. There's plenty of eyewitness testimony, but nevertheless, there is that missing a smoking gun.
Let's go to...
Excellent point raised there. There is no smoking gun. There is no text that says, do this or else. Participate or it's going to jeopardize career. Participate or I'm going to physically abuse you. Do this or else. Do this or else I will. I'll threaten your life. Do this or else your family's life will be in danger. There is no smoking gun as such, and so for Diddy, that bodes well for him. Is the fact that. There is a lot of circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of stuff that is out there that, witness will say, witnessed, and for that crimes were committed. But there's not exactly something written by Diddy saying that do this or else. So again, that is a feather in the cap for Diddy. Let's continue.
A Big Teddy 9843. He says, so he's on trial for being a freak. I've heard nothing about human trafficking. Now, remember, these are early days. Yes. They're going to have witnesses who were brought across state lines. You will get plenty of trafficking evidence.
By the way, Diddy's not even going to challenge that.
He's basically conceded the transportation across state lines. There's even just by the testimony and the way they're handling this, he's not going to win that.
And just so you know.
Remember, there's not much of a punishment for bringing prostitutes over state lines. Bringing over sex workers over state lines. Basically, it's time served. Basically, it's community service. Basically, it's a slap on the wrist compared to the criminal organization aspect and the sex trafficking aspect. And so that's what they're really trying to. That's the big fish. That's the big fry. That's exactly why Diddy may go to jail for 15 to 50 years. It wouldn't be for bringing for prostitution or bringing over the said prostitutes over state lines. Let's continue.
No, that's all human trafficking is. It maybe sounds more egregious than that, but it is simply bringing an individual across state lines for the purpose of illegal acts, that illegal act being prostitution. So it's that is the human trafficking. They're going to have countless witnesses that say that he was engaged in that. Diddy's never denied that he did that.
I think he'll fold on that and accept that and accept that.
Yeah. So actually, Josh Howard, a very similar question. He has issues with how the hell did this end up in federal court? How did this end up in federal court? Bring across state lines.
That's it. Once you have interstate commerce, that is a big way to have federal jurisdiction. There are a couple ways to do it. That is a very big one, and that's why you see that element in these charges. Most criminal acts are state crimes. Right. Murder, everything you've heard of, robbery. These are all things that are handled in state courts and they're in a particular jurisdiction. As soon as you go state to state, you don't know which state to prosecute someone in, so the feds come in and say that is now a federal offense.
And just not to get too down on this, but too much on this, there's something called the Mann Act. It was passed by Congress about 100 years ago to stop this exact kind of thing. Because in some states back in the day, prostitution was not illegal. So what they would do is a John would go across state lines, pick up a prostitute, bring them back to his house in the illegal state and say, or leave bring a prostitute across state lines to the where it's legal, have sex with them there. And the feds wanted to stop that. So they say, if you bring somebody across state lines for the purpose of illegal sex, we can prosecute you for that under the Mann Act.
Exactly.
So excellent point raised there. And if you did not know, now you know. That's the reason why feds were created this case against Diddy. Is the fact that he brought prostitutes over state lines to commit illegal acts. Because, well, again, prostitution is still illegal in most, if not all, if most of the United States. There are a few states where prostitution is legal. I know Vegas, in Nevada, it's legal. And in certain other states, which, well, actually, you know what? Let's just find out quickly where those states are where prostitution is legal. Where is prostitution legal in the U.S.?
Right. All right. Let's go to one. We've got DJ Young C. I'm sorry. Is Dawn Richards set to testify? Yes. Dawn Richards from Danity Kane has been scheduled as one of the next witnesses that the prosecution will bring up. So we'll keep you abreast of her testimony.
And finally, the Infinite Mind says whether she agreed or not, he took it to another level. So again, we hear you. We understand that. We agree with you.
Absolutely. Okay. So it is only legal in Nevada. So there you go. Everywhere else, prostitution is illegal. So in the United States, it's only legal in specific regulated brothels in specific regulated counties in the state of Nevada. That's it. No other state in the United States allows for prostitution. So it is still an illegal act, and especially if you bring said prostitutes over state lines. So that's where this is a U.S. federal case, and also the fact the whole RICO aspect, criminal organization created for illegal acts and illegal crimes such as racketeering, prostitution, all this other stuff. Let's continue. Back to it.
He is a monster, this testimony shows. That is simply not illegal if she agreed.
Yep. So that'll do it for today. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you very much to the TMZ crew, but we're going to go back to it. We are not done. We're going into day 10 now. We're going into day 10 of the Diddy Court recap, and we're going to keep it rolling here on Talk Live. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So that was pretty much the end of the Cassie Ventura testimony. So we're going to get into the next. I think it was Dawn Rashad.
Today marks day 10 of the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. The prosecution still has the case. They're still putting out witnesses. They called 3 different witnesses to the stand today. The first was Dawn Richard, a former member of the musical group Danity Kane. Second, Carrie Morgan, a friend of Cassie's throughout the relevant time period of her relationship with Diddy. And third is David James, a former assistant of Diddy's. His testimony started today, will continue on Tuesday. Derek, Dawn Richard was clearly the centerpiece of the prosecution's case on this day of testimony. Give us a sense of what she said about what she witnessed with Diddy and Cassie.
You're right. These 3 witnesses are, of course, coming on the heels of Cassie's emotional, very powerful testimony last week. And what these 3 witnesses are doing is sort of bolstering some of what she said. Because, of course, the jury is listening to Cassie, but Cassie has, as all witnesses do, their own agenda. They can only offer their own perspective. And you want to offer...
She got beaten up on Cross a little bit, too.
That's right. She certainly had to deal with Cross, and, how she survived that in the jury's minds remains to be seen. But you always want to bring in other witnesses who saw what was happening, because that helps lend credibility to some of her testimony. So they started with Dawn Richard, who is the singer of Danity Kane, very close ties, because that group was, of course, started by Diddy and the Bad Boy label. She testified to primarily this horrific incident that she says she witnessed between Cassie and Diddy, where there was violence perpetrated on Cassie with a skillet. He was maybe cooking some eggs and tried to hit her with the skillet, maybe made some contact in this tussle. And she testified to having witnessed this and really how it impacted her seeing this, how she tried to talk to Cassie afterwards about what she had just witnessed. She's also sort of testified a little bit about this racketeering charge in this respect, because remember, they're trying to set up Diddy as the head of a criminal enterprise and sort of ruling it with threats.
Not just someone who victimized Cassie, but was part of a large, like you said, criminal enterprise. And that there are a couple reasons that's important. Number one, it's yet another charge they can get him with. And number two, it's the kind of thing you get a long time in prison for doing, right? You're head of a criminal enterprise, then you're talking decades or more in prison.
That's exactly right. And
so again, that, as I said, is the big fish that we're talking about here. That they don't want him for the prostitution. They don't want him for bringing prostitutes over state lines. That's a pittance. What they want him is for, indeed, the sex trafficking, and they want him for the RICO charge, being a head of a criminal organization. So there you have it. We have Again, we have Don Richard testifying to the fact that not only was Diddy abusive, having witnessed the abuse of Cassie Ventura, but also she witnessed certain acts that led people to believe that Diddy was involved in racketeering and thus being the head of a large criminal organization. Those being within the guises of Bad Boy Records, within the guises of Revolt et al. Let's continue.
Dawn Richard is not someone who says she was coerced into freak-offs or anything of that nature. She's someone who says, look, I observed him beating his girlfriend, Cassie. I also observed that he made threats to me. Some of these threats were of the nature of people can go missing if they talk about things like this, sort of the snitches get stitches kind of threats that were made. These are going to be very obvious to jurors who are sitting there listening to this testimony. If you believe her, you're going to interpret these things as threats that he was making to sort of carry out all of his misdeeds with Cassie and so forth. So her testimony was powerful. Now, the other person who came out was Carrie Morgan.
Can we stop there?
Yeah, let's pause on Dawn.
I wanted to hit a couple more points on Dawn. She testified to the extent, I'm not sure it goes directly to the criminal activities, the allegedly criminal activities, but again, painting the atmosphere of Diddy as a dangerous and controlling person.
Yep.
She testified that he carried around a gun with him.
That's right.
All the time, stuffed into his back waistband. It's obviously nothing illegal about carrying a gun. They were, but in certain states, nothing illegal about it. No allegation that it was illegal. But when he was victimizing her, he also had a gun on him, that he was frequently taking ketamine, weed, cocaine, taking opiates.
And testimony about carrying around this Louis Vuitton bag that he would have this drug dealer apparently named One Stop who had everything.
What a great name for a drug dealer.
If you got everything. Like you imagine a guy just opening up his trench coat and having a full assortment of drugs, apparently also including Plan B, which lines up a little bit with Cassie's testimony about these freak-offs, because she testified that Diddy didn't like any of the sex workers that were in these freak-offs to use protection. He didn't like the look of that. So you can imagine this.
So do remember One Stop. If you don't remember who One Stop was a dude that Diddy employed for his freak-offs, who indeed had all these drugs available so that these freak-offs could continue. He was I believe he was a Caucasian gentleman. I believe he was charged as of last year for and brought in for questioning regarding his use by Diddy. He was a man who was there at most, if not all, these freak-offs. Now I don't know if he's going to be brought on to bring testimony to this, or if not, or if the defense will have no use for him, or if the prosecution will have him testify for them. But again, One Stop is the guy who basically brought the drugs so everybody can get high and these freak-offs can continue. So, a very important man indeed. Now, again, so the continuing testimony of Don Richard was really, again, trying to show that Diddy that she witnessed Diddy commit these crimes, that she witnessed Diddy have these sort of cohorts involved in these freak-offs, and that Diddy was at the top, at the head, making the decisions for said federal crimes against him he's being accused of, and they're being put to proof here in this trial. Let's continue.
This drug being necessary.
She testified that in addition to witnessing some abuse of Cassie, at other times she saw her with injuries on her face, arms, and legs after Diddy was violent towards Cassie. and that Cassie went through great pains to cover it up with clothing, makeup, sunglasses, getting this idea out there that she was victimized, but was still trying to preserve it from the public, not let it get out.
Yeah, and in conjunction with this, there's been exhibits that have been sort of dumped on the public. These are used when you're in trial, just to take a step back and you have a witness on the stand. You'll say, I'd like to submit this as Exhibit A. And the witness will take a look at it, maybe sort of refresh their memory, but you also need to submit all this evidence so that the jury can go back and deliberate and look through all these papers. We've now seen some of them. A lot of them are text messages and many, many photos. So to your point of Cassie's injuries, there's lots of photos of injuries. Now, none of them show Diddy beating her like the video. So this is just a person with injuries, but lined up with the testimony of he hit me here and she's got a gash above her eyebrow. Here's me taking a selfie and she has glasses on. Her lip looks swollen and like she had black eyes, according to some of this testimony. The jury is going to look back and have basically an array of photos backing up some of this testimony.
All right. So Carrie Morgan then is called to the stand, and she seeks to corroborate not just the testimony about Cassie, but also just Diddy's really violent nature.
And this is someone who was very, very close to Cassie. Dawn Richard was a member of Danity Kane, but not necessarily Cassie's best friend. This person was Cassie's really good friend. And she testified that she was staying with Cassie after the hotel beating in 2016. She was staying at Cassie's apartment, and she says she was at the apartment that day afterwards when Cassie came home, and she says Diddy then came to the apartment with a hammer and started banging on that door. She says she was inside, terrified. She looked at Cassie, who she said was on a couch, sort of emotionless, numb to this sort of display by Diddy that she said was going on, just rapping at the door. Apparently, he never was able to gain entry. The police came later that day, and she says they interviewed Cassie, but Cassie was unwilling to cooperate at that time. And now we're painting this picture of a very domestically violent relationship, and Cassie, unwilling or feeling trapped in this moment, sort of aligns with the testimony that Carrie Morgan was giving. She also says, which I think is very interesting, she was paid $30,000 in a settlement from Diddy not to speak about anything.
Well, no.
I thought that was the testimony.
The testimony is that Carrie Morgan testified that in 2018, that Diddy assaulted Carrie Morgan
with the hanger.
Cassie's apartment in 2018. This is a testimony. Combs let himself into the apartment while Ventura was in the bathroom. Morgan testifies, quote, he came up behind me and choked me and then boomeranged a wooden hanger at my head, Morgan testified, adding that she had finger marks on her neck. Morgan said she gathered her belongings and left, telling the assistant, he's going crazy. He's lost it. The assistant just shrugged. That was to Diddy's assistant. I don't think he knew what he could do about it, Morgan said of the assistant, setting up this whole idea that these assistants were just simply in the bag for Diddy and they never objected and went along with what he was doing. She said she met up with Cassie about a month after the incident, and Cassie told her she would be receiving $30,000 from Diddy. So Cassie is now brokering a settlement in 2018, 2 years after the hotel incidents. Cassie and Diddy are now no longer officially dating. Cassie's now brokering this settlement between Cassie and
Carrie Morgan. And according to the testimony, this incident, this precipitating incident, ended their friendship.
Yes, that's
because she testified that Cassie thought that Carrie maybe took it a little bit far with how she felt injured by the incident, or maybe thought it wasn't as big of a deal. And the payment to her apparently was the last time they ever spoke.
How do you think that cuts to the jury that Cassie?
So again, Carrie Morgan is certainly a key witness in the sense that she received abuse on behalf of Diddy. There you go. Diddy laid hands on her through a wooden hanger at her, and was paid $30,000 to keep things quiet. And this was broken through Cassie Ventura herself. So, and in doing so, that ended the friendship between these two, Carrie Morgan and Cassie, that you see here live on Talk Talk Live. And thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So again, it's very, very. This is a very, very key witness in the sense that she was there to witness not only Diddy threaten Cassie with abuse but she actually was abused by Diddy himself, and received $30,000 payment as a result. And now we are at a stage now where uh, these two, Carrie Morgan and Cassie, weren't friends after that incident in 2018. So it's Diddy is now being made more of an abusive individual simply because not only did Cassie receive said abuse, but Carrie Morgan received said abuse, and this only casts more more negative testimony against Diddy himself, making him more of a person who would, who may have been involved in a criminal organization simply because because of his negative activities, not only mental but physical as well, especially to Carrie Morgan. Let's continue.
Is this woman in distress? A few things. Woman in distress, horribly treated by this man, clearly under his, underneath him and burdened by him. 2 years later, they're now broken up, living apart. She's dating somebody else. We know a couple of things. Number one, they went back, they had dinner, and he brought her home, she says, and raped her in her apartment. That's thing one. Number two, they subsequently had what she described as voluntary sex. And it was not, she basically wanted to have sex with him again. Totally understandable. No judgment passed at all. Lots of people under trauma can nevertheless go forward with voluntary sex. And then she that same year, brokers a settlement between Carrie Morgan and Diddy. I think the jury might be swimming a little bit in exactly what role Cassie's playing in his life at this point. It doesn't talk about what happened.
Look, I think you're right. I mean, these emotions that Cassie was dealing with are incredibly complicated, and sometimes their behavior can seem contradictory to how you might think you would behave. And jurors are going to try to do that. It's natural to sit there and say, would I have had, after someone raped me, then had voluntary sex with them? And a lot of them aren't going to be able to get into the mindset of an abuse victim and how they behaved in certain circumstances. And you're right, that's going to be a challenge. It's not to say that Cassie is lying or anything, but the complicated emotions are hard to
We're just wondering how balls and strikes on this again. How does this play to a juror, to a jury and individual jurors who look at her and go, wow, I wouldn't have done that, to your point. I wouldn't have done that in that situation. Does that mean that she's not being entirely truthful when she says she was coerced into these acts?
I imagine. And
so again, it's quite the smorgasbord. It's quite the the mixed message throughout the Cassie's testimony that Diddy allegedly raped her one day and slept with her with Cassie having affection for her the next. Now again, this goes towards battered woman syndrome. This goes towards not exactly having the right psychological state, indeed. But again, it could go to the fact that she still had feelings and love for Diddy at that time, and that makes things all the more complicated. So again, you're getting this mixed bag of things, and it's going to be very, very difficult for a jury to decipher what. If indeed Diddy was a monster, if they were still sleeping together consensually. And so it's a really mixed bag that we're dealing with here. It's a real cornucopia of emotions that that can confuse a jury, and the defense can use to their advantage, quite simply, that saying that, hey, you may say that he was a monster, but you slept with him consensually even at the end of your relationship. So what does that mean? So there's a mixed message going on here that the defense can use indeed to their advantage. Let's continue.
And tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think the government is going to try to address some of these behaviors that seem contradictory on their face through expert witnesses.
Right.
They're going to have to bring in psychologists who explain things about, you remember with Patty Hearst, they had to invent something. They had to describe Stockholm Syndrome. They had to let jurors know this is how some people behave and they tend to like their captors and things like that. You're going to need people to explain that to the jury and walk them through that if you're going to get them to buy the way she was behaving.
Really quickly.
Excellent point raised there by Kaufman and Beckerman, in the sense that that's exactly how any good lawyer would handle such things when you have a mix of emotions like this, is to bring in an expert, bring in a psychological expert, bring in a sociological expert, bring in someone who can speak to such behaviors. and then make them a little more credible in the eyes of the jury. So indeed, I'm sure there'll be an expert on hand to explain why indeed Cassie, though she feared for her life against Diddy, slept with him consensually. We're going to be back for the second hour here on Talk Talk Live. Do not go away as we continue the recap of the Diddy trial from days 7 to 11. Do come on back. Thank you very much for joining me in Talk Talk Live. Back in a minute. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Talk Live here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We are going to be returning to IG in just one moment as we... There we go. Yeah. Nope, no, not story. And live. There we go. So we're gonna get back to our Talk Live here on YouTube. So we're gonna get on IG and YouTube. And thank you very much for joining me for the second hour here on Talk Live. We are live. We are back here on Talk Live. Second hour here on YouTube. And my hair is looking very good, to be fair. I just want to throw that in just for a little bit of levity because we're dealing with a very, very heavy subject here in terms of freak offs, in terms of abuse. So this shouldn't be taken lightly. And again, it's just bringing a little levity to what is a very dark and very sinister and very serious subject, to be fair and frank. So so as I was saying in the at the end of the first hour, an expert's going to have to be brought in to explain the emotions of Diddy of Cassie Ventura at the time where she indeed had consensual sex with Diddy, even though she considered him a monster, even though she considered him very, very abusive, and anyone of sound mind and body would want to get as far away from Diddy as possible. But let's continue with the recap from Beckerman and Kaufman from TMZ Live, Diddy in Court, Day 10.
Derek, David James, former assistant to Puffy, had a brief amount of testimony. He's going to be back on the stand tomorrow. Can you summarize what it is that David James?
Yeah, so this was a former Diddy assistant, and it sounds like most of his testimony thus far has been about setting up Diddy as the head of a criminal enterprise. He says when he was interviewed for the job, he was told by someone, I believe a head of HR or someone of that nature, who said, Diddy is basically king of this organization. We're all here to serve him. So it sounds like when you take the job at Bad Boy or whatever Diddy job you're going for, you need to know that it's a full-time gig. He said it would be sometimes 70 hours a week. He would start at 8 a.m., end at 4 a.m. You need to be game for anything. And that's starting to set him up as the head of a crime.
Further down that road, James testified that whenever he would sort of object, say, boy, I'm not really comfortable with this, he was told to stay in his lane, basically support the criminal enterprise.
Don't ask questions.
What's good for you. Don't ask questions. He also recalled a conversation he had with Cassie where she said to him, quote, man, this lifestyle is crazy. I can't get out of it. She told him that Diddy controlled her music career, paid for her apartment, and gave her an allowance. So again, testifying that you had this huge criminal enterprise, and Cassie herself felt powerless to get out from it.
Yeah. Now, some of this testimony is
very good point raised there. Well, very good point. That is indeed a David James testimony. Indeed, being a part of Bad Boy Records, being a part of Revolt, being a part of Diddy's many companies as his assistant. Mr. James was there to show that Diddy was indeed the head of a criminal enterprise. Was indeed the person who brought everyone together to serve him and his purpose, which was to indeed commit criminal acts, among other things. So this man is here to corroborate a lot of the alleged criminal activities that Diddy participated in, and that Diddy was indeed the head of the hub and of the wheel, with Cassie and Mr. James being only spokes within it, and also Miss Dawn Richard, who had testified earlier. And it's just to show that Diddy was just the person who really was the man where the bucks the man where the buck stopped, and who was indeed the brains of the operation. To be fair, Frank, let's continue.
Interesting. He's testifying about a conversation he had with Cassie. You would think that's classic hearsay. There are exceptions to hearsay rules where you can just say, you don't have to buy that Cassie was saying the truth about Diddy being in control, but you're getting to someone's state of mind.
Right.
So there are hearsay exceptions to say, Cassie said this. We're not offering it to say that that is absolutely true, just to show her frame of mind.
That's right. So a couple of comments. Damari, said, when you are in an abusive relationship, they control you. I think Damari speaking for many people. We read the comments. We see how insistent people are that just because she at times, made the decision to not leave him, made the decision to have sex with him again, whatever it might be, it is not indicative of somebody who was compliant with his request.
I think that's right. And I think this is a true statement, what you say, Damari, where if you're in an abusive relationship, you feel like you are controlled, but not everyone will look at these facts the same way. And the defense is trying to play to people who look at certain situations and say, why didn't you just leave him? Then there are people who say those kind of things, and they want to have a juror who sort of believes that Cassie had more agency to get out of the relationship than maybe she let on the stand.
Tito, honestly, do you really think Cassie is the star witness? Thinking as an attorney, she's only placed for how his true character is. She's far more than just a character witness. I think she's a fact witness. It's essential for the prosecution's case.
Yeah, no, she's far more than a character witness. The case is about her. The sex trafficking charge about coercing someone into sex acts is about Cassie, and it's about the other unnamed victims, but she's so central to this case and the charges levied against him. You can't dismiss her as just painting a picture of his character in general. She is core to the case.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. Cassie, if there was no Cassie civil lawsuit against Diddy, there would be no case against Diddy. There would be no federal case against Diddy. She is the number one witness for the prosecution, without doubt. She is not a character witness. She is there exclusively because she was there to see the criminal organization from the inside out. She was there to see the prostitutes be brought over state lines. Allegedly, she was there to organize some of these freak-off parties. But she had intimate knowledge of all things this in operation for this criminal organization. Period. All the sex trafficking, the racketeering, the RICO, seeing Diddy as being the head of said criminal organization. Cassie is indeed the number one witness for the prosecution. Without her testimony, there is no case. Literally, on behalf of the U.S. Attorney's Office. And remember, all of these other witnesses were there to show that Cassie was abused. Cassie was in fear of her life. Cassie was indeed playing second fiddle and being coerced to participate in these freak-offs. Without Cassie, there is no case. There literally is no case on behalf of the federal prosecution, and so we must realize that she is not indeed only a character witness. Absolutely not. Let's continue.
Totally agree. And then finally, Arthur N., if I'm a juror, I'm not buying that Cassie was scared to say no, considering that she was saying other things like, I'll kill you, making these threats against Cassie. It's interesting. So Damari,
how do you think that plays?
Damari on the one hand says, like, when you're in an abusive relationship, they control you. Arthur N., on the other hand, says, I'm not buying that she was too scared to say no. She had all these other comments where she seemed to have agency and speak out. And this is what the prosecution and the defense are vying for. They're trying to convince the witnesses of one or the other narrative. Both are not, you can't have both, right?
Well, here's what's interesting. Cassie is the central victim of this case. She's got the bruises to show for it, so to speak, and she's going to be in the mind of the jurors to prove that sex trafficking case. She might have also been somewhat of a perpetrator of the criminal enterprise. I mean, some of the things Cassie's doing fit into the narrative that Diddy ran a criminal enterprise and some people went off to threaten other people when they needed to. And Cassie might have been one of those as well. So reconciling these two things in your mind is something the jurors are going to have to wrestle with.
And what the prosecution is going to say is, She may or may not have been part of the criminal enterprise, but it's all because he asserted such incredible day-to-day control over her, backed with horrific acts of physical violence, taking a hammer to her front door, all these other things. The way he was able to perpetrate these crimes was by getting people who were terrified of him to do his bidding.
That's how you reconcile it.
All right, guys, we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Excellent points raised there. Yeah, exactly. We're going to go to the update from today's testimony in the Diddy trial. So look out for that right now. And then we're gonna get back into Cassie's testimony and how indeed it was it can be seen another way, and something that men have to be careful of overall, and the doubt that may have been cast to a lot of men who are on this and in the jury deciding this case. So let's get into to day 11 of Diddy Day in Court. Today's update on the Diddy case. I'm sure more people are testifying. If not Mr. James, then more people. David James again is the Diddy assistant who witnessed a lot of witnessed one of the witnesses of the criminal organization in progress. So, and indeed, who corroborated the story that Diddy was indeed in charge of a criminal enterprise involved in racketeering, involved in sex trafficking, et al. Let's continue.
Day 11 of the Diddy trial, and the prosecution continues to put on witnesses to establish their case against Diddy. Today's trial, Derek, honed in on the criminal enterprise with witnesses who either worked for him or witnessed some of the actions that the prosecution alleges were tantamount to creating a criminal enterprise. Obviously, the centerpiece of this RICO case. Tell us some of what Cassie's mom talked about, as well as one of Diddy's assistants who took the stand for quite some time.
Yeah, so this is one of the more complicated parts of this case. If the Cassie testimony was really built around was she coerced, it was really a single issue. Was she able to establish that she was coerced into these freak-offs? The RICO case, meaning the racketeering charge, is really one that needs to be built brick by brick. What they're trying to establish is that Diddy, through bad boy companies and through his own sort of other dealings, ran a very complicated criminal enterprise. And through doing that, he had people around him who did his bidding illegally. And how he did that, how he made people sort of work for his criminal enterprise that they're trying to establish, was through various...
So indeed, like One Stop, as I've already mentioned here on Talk Live, One Stop distributed the drugs, illegal drugs, to the patrons of the freak-offs so that the freak-offs could continue for not only hours and hours, but days and days. Let's continue.
So let's go into...
Can I just jump in with one quick thought? There is so much. We've seen so many people in the comments say, this is not a RICO case, not a criminal enterprise. It's not about the mafia. We understand perfectly well that RICO laws were there to stop organized crime as we typically think about it. Hundreds of people murdering, delivering drugs, prostitution, the whole thing that we see in The Sopranos, classic RICO. That does not mean at all that other people who are not in the Italian mafia cannot also be guilty of RICO crimes. And by the way, 99.5% of RICO cases have nothing to do with organized crime the way that we think about it.
That's right.
Instead, it is individuals getting together and conspiring to commit illegal acts of all kinds. It doesn't have to be murder and mayhem. It can simply be, freak-offs.
That's right.
That's an illegal act, allegedly, that they hired prostitutes to do it. And if there's a criminal enterprise that's set up for the purpose of providing drugs and guns and girls and everything else, it doesn't matter that it's not the traditional television-style RICO. RICO comes in many shapes and sizes, and I want to reiterate that almost every RICO case prosecuted nationwide has nothing to do with the kind of gangland style stuff you would see in the old Soprano style television.
Jason's right. That's just
an excellent point raised there by Mr. Beckerman. It's that RICO is not exact. RICO is something as simple as allowing for free costs through the use of prostitutes, because prostitution is illegal in the United States, outside of Nevada, certain counties in Nevada. So again, it's to be involved in a racketeering case and bringing trafficking prostitutes over state lines and being involved in the criminal enterprise to create these freak-offs through legitimate companies. These are still RICO cases. These it doesn't have to be a Soprano style organization whose only enterprise is to commit illegal acts for an illegal purpose. A lot of these, Bad Boy was a legitimate record company. Revolt was a legitimate publishing company. A lot of these companies did certain things, certain illegal things to allow for these freak-offs to happen. Remember, all of these crimes were about the freak-offs, right? It's all about the freak-offs. You can have a freak-off among consenting adults. That's what's called swinging. That's what's called being in the lifestyle. However, if you involve prostitutes from overstate lines to participate in these freak-offs, that and allowing for drug use during these freak-offs to keep them going, that's the illegal part. That's what they want to get Diddy on, and that's what makes this a RICO case. All these certain crimes happening over various state lines in order to create these certain freak-offs, of which Cassie, the key witnessed from start to finish, and also was involved in the organization of the freak-offs themselves. Let's continue.
Anyway,
Not
just
the way
want to
those
get that out of there.
statutes are written now. People can question. I think what people questioning that gets to is, should the government be using its resources?
And again, all this. Wow, I didn't know what happened there. That stopped for some reason. Let's go back to it. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened there, but let's just go back here. Oh, my God. We're trying to get live here again on Instagram, but it seemed to have shut off for some reason. Do not understand why, because it's not as if I'm just reporting on the Diddy case. So I don't know what happened there. But anyways, we'll just continue. We will continue. Ladies and gentlemen, so as I was stating, that is what we're reporting on here, the RICO case. So we're back on Talk Live right here on IG and on YouTube. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there, but we have reorganized. The feed, and we're continuing onward. But that just seemed to stop out of nowhere. But anyways, nonetheless. So yes, and again, fair use with the use of TMZ Live here, ladies and gentlemen, if that wasn't already exclaimed. So this is what we're dealing with here. We are dealing with just legitimate companies, basically organizing illegal parties and use of illegal drugs and the use of prostitution in creating this sort of enterprise that is the freak-offs, ladies and gentlemen. So, but again, it doesn't have to necessarily be a criminal organization like the mob, unfortunately, which is classic RICO, in order to create these sort of criminal organizations. The criminal organization can simply be that, in this case, was that Diddy brought prostitutes over state lines to create freak-offs, and in doing so, used racketeering, sex trafficking, the prostitution, drug use, all these certain things in order to create the RICO crime. Let's continue.
To prosecute someone who isn't running a mafia-like organization? That's a fair question. That's a fair question. But whether it fits under the statute, it certainly does.
It's an irrelevant question of whether it was meant to target this kind of activity. It does, by its law, target it. And if the prosecutors can meet the various elements of the crime of RICO, of racketeering, then they get a conviction.
That's right. And that is what they are setting up through this guy, David James, who was an assistant to Diddy. And what he is testifying on the stand about.
Okay, yeah. David James is still on the stand on the Into Today's testimony. So David James, Diddy assistant, still on the stand.
Is the ways in which he was put into this criminal enterprise. He says when he interviewed for the job, he was told in no uncertain terms, "We aim to serve the king." And Diddy was referred to as the king. So he knew going into this that serving his every pleasure and what he wanted done was something that had to that you had to sign up for when you took the job. However, he says there were incidents along the way. One in which there was a party where a videographer was hired to film the party. This guy said one of the perks of the job was, we got to do fun things. And there was a videographer who showed him a video of this guy, what he called Diddy bopping. And he said, look, I was drinking Ciroc, I was taking ecstasy, and I was sort of grooving. I was vibing at the party. He says Diddy then sat next to him going through this video and said, hey, player, is that you on the video sort of vibing out there on drugs? And he interpreted that to be, and then Diddy said, I'm going to keep that just in case I need it. To David James, he said he interpreted that as basically compromise, like sort of something he can
don't
hold
step out
over.
of line.
That.
I'm going to hold this over you. Right.
That's right. I'll hold this over to
right.
you. And that could be don't snitch about the things you see. That could be listen to everything I say or I'll release this. But the way that was interpreted was a threat to go along with the program or else. And so these are the types of things you're hearing in the testimony. Now, David James, to be fair, said he did not witness any physical violence with Cassie, but that's not his purpose on the stand. His purpose is to show the other parts of this alleged criminal enterprise. He also discusses an incident where he said...
Oh, that's the picture on the left is David James, ladies and gentlemen, the former Diddy assistant.
He was doing his job. There was a report back to Diddy from one of his lieutenants that Suge Knight was at Mel's Diner. Mel's Diner is a very famous restaurant here in Los
Hollywood
Angeles.
Diner. Lots of famous celebs used to go there and hang out. It's been featured in tons of movies, the whole thing.
That's right. Apparently, the lieutenant said Suge Knight has been spotted at this restaurant. Diddy then said, let's go roll up on Suge Knight. They gathered some guns. According to David James, Diddy had 3 guns on his lap. They went to Mel's Diner in search of Suge Knight to either, threaten, intimidate, potentially kill. No one knows. Suge Knight was not there. But David James recounts this as the moment he knew his safety was at risk and he wanted out of the job. But he's testifying as to how difficult it was to get out of this orbit because that's the case the prosecutors want to make, that this was a criminal enterprise that the people working within kind of felt trapped as well.
And I have to tell you, because we talked about a minute ago.
That's an interesting point raised there that Diddy, he tried to carry out vendettas against certain enemies that he had in the music industry, including his longtime enemy Suge Knight from Death Row Records. It's it was again just to show that the East Coast West Coast beat was not exactly over in that certain circumstance, and then you can read into the Tupac death and the Biggie death and how all these things are certainly convoluted, and how and Diddy's alleged place in said deaths, and very interesting reading to say the least, those allegations. But it is, to say that Mr. James was threatened due to his behavior at these parties, to say that Mr. James had to be at the ready with weaponry for any sort of vendetta that Diddy had against other people within the music industry, inside or outside of the music industry, and that Mr. James was coerced to commit these acts simply because you had to serve the king. It is somewhat damning testimony, and again, it goes to show that Diddy was indeed involved in a criminal organization that used its legitimate funds for illegal acts. Let's continue.
You don't have to establish it was like an old classic mafia, but when somebody's not allowed to leave a criminal organization like this, and there's no denying that it was an organization that engaged in criminal acts, but one of the hallmarks of old traditional mafia organizations is once you're in, you can never get out.
That's right.
And so the prosecutors are trying to sort of lean into that, saying, you jury don't really think it's a traditional criminal enterprise. Well, this guy David James is telling you that he was threatened that he could never leave, that if he ever did anything wrong vis-a-vis Diddy, that he could be punished by exposure of these videos. And David Jane said he felt threatened by this, not just as I think not just the exposure and the embarrassment, but also his physical safety as well.
Yeah.
And that looks more and more like a traditional sort of mafia-style criminal enterprise.
And who knows how this is landing, but what I find compelling about the testimony we've seen to date is that the witnesses are not they're not angels. You know, this is a guy who took a job with Diddy, he took some ecstasy, they're not people who, the credibility comes from the fact that they're also behaving maybe inappropriately to some people. Cassie certainly has to deal with that. She was aggressive at times, she was making threats at times. It's how all of this looks to the jury. It was, you know, was Diddy sort of forcing these people into situations where they were doing misdeeds so that he could keep control of them? And I think that's landing.
Right. And even David James testified that he had received some form of immunity from prosecutors in exchange for his testimony. The jury interprets that how they will. He testified, just to wrap it up, he testified that he witnessed Diddy using drugs. He had a role in stocking hotel rooms for Diddy, both with sort of the instruments of the sex acts that they were going to commit, condoms and lube and things like that, but also drugs, this Louis Vuitton bag that had the Percocets in them, the ecstasy in them, and that he was subject to a lie detector test and to various intimidating searches. At one point, he talked about that he was on a computer and Diddy busts in and wants to see the computer's history for fear that David James was maybe a turncoat and Diddy wanted to catch him doing that. Apparently, according to David James, there was nothing to find because he had never done anything. But nevertheless, more to the intimidating your employees part of it, again, this criminal enterprise.
Really does sound like...
Yeah, again, it spoke to Diddy's acts of coercion. So basically threatening him with taking ecstasy at a party, that could be used against him. Threatening him with stooping on him with regards to his computer use, and thinking that he is and threatening him that if anything's on that computer that may be compromising, that he may be in danger. All these things to say that Diddy was the head of a criminal organization. It's just, again, a complete and utter pile-on of evidence, so that something sticks. So something sticks, unfortunately, quote unquote. So again, it's just an accumulation of evidence, and they're really trying to create a mountain so that Diddy can't come out of. But again, it's yet to see what the defense's witnesses are, and how indeed when they have their day in court, how they can shake the mountain of evidence that is created by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Let's continue.
Like a culture of fear. So
move on if you can, unless you have more on David James.
That's
I want to talk about Cassie's mom. This is somebody who was not subject to cross-examination. I'm leading with the tail leading the head here, but not subject to cross-examination by the defense, which is telling. It's very hard to go after somebody's mom when they get up on the stand. She's still a young woman. This is not by no means an old woman, but nevertheless, very...
they let her get on and off the stand quickly.
Yeah, this is a woman who talked about the horrific things that her daughter went through, and without cross-examination, what did she testify?
That's right. So she's really...
So this is indeed a character witness. This is what you call spoke to the character of Cassie at the time of this of her relationship with Diddy, and the fact that her life was in constant threat of and she was constantly being coerced and constantly being made afraid of Diddy through Diddy's acts. And so again, to be granted immunity from cross-examination, that is a sweet deal. But again, it wouldn't. It just spoke to Cassie's lack of safety when she was with Diddy. Let's continue.
Reporting on things that Cassie told her during the course of her relationship with Diddy. And one of the things she said was, Cassie, my daughter, came to me and said that Diddy was threatening to release sex tapes of me, that he was very upset. This was around 2011 when Diddy got very upset over Cassie's relationship with Kid Cudi. More on that, by the way, in the coming days. Kid Cudi is going to testify, so we'll get some closure on his thoughts on the car explosion and all that stuff. But what she...
Wow, that is a big breadcrumb there, in that Kid Cudi will testify against Diddy. That should be some fireworks. That is must-see TV, to be fair. because again, Kid Cudi was allegedly Kid Cudi's vehicle was allegedly blown up by Diddy because of his affair with Cassie when Cassie and Diddy had a break. So to hear that Kid Cudi will be a witness in future days is a big breadcrumb that a lot of people are anticipating and looking forward to, including myself. Let's continue.
Said was her daughter told her that she was in fear. And then Diddy told the mother, according to this testimony, that he was so upset about this relationship with Cudi that he wanted her parents, Cassie's parents, to reimburse him for the money he had invested in Cassie.
$30,000 was it?
$20,000.
Okay.
He said, these people who are not wealthy people, you need to wire me $20,000 because I invested $20K in your daughter for her music career and so forth. And now she's with Kid Cudi, so I've lost my investment. Basically strong-armed them. They said they were very nervous. She testified that they got another mortgage on their home, got the money together, wired it to Diddy, and subsequently the money was wired back to their account. Now, I want to delve into what that means.
Yes.
Because to me, that means that Diddy was made aware either by his own realization or someone told him, hey, man, you're extorting her parents now pretty openly. This is a third party that we don't have much control over. And by sending the money back to them, I think showed an awareness that he had crossed the line.
Wow, that's a bit of a revelation today that Diddy had threatened Cassie's parents through her affair. Shout out to my man Brian Marcial. Hope all is well, sir. That is again another example of Diddy being involved in a criminal organization through Cassie's affair with Kid Cudi. Diddy went back to Cassie's parents and said, you know what? For the amount I've invested in your daughter, you're gonna have to bring that money back to me. So $30,000, or else unless something allegedly may happen to Cassie in future. So again, with them organizing the money, bringing it to Diddy, and then Diddy realizing through counsel, through legal advice that, you know what, you're involved in extortion. You may want to send that money back. Diddy sent that money back, realizing that, you know what, I'm involved in a legal act, which only adds further credence to him being involved in a criminal organization, even though I don't know if they have the actual wire transfer. We'll find out as we move on with Beckerman and Kaufman here from TMZ. Fair use, fair use. But yeah, that is a huge revelation there, that Diddy indeed tried to extort Cassie's parents for money that Diddy invested in his daughter to further her career. Wow. Now, if that's not being a part of a criminal enterprise, I don't know what is. Let's continue.
I'm glad you brought this up. First of all, the act of demanding $20,000 for these people, and they felt physically threatened by this, fear for this, both for themselves and for the daughter, may in fact be a criminal act in and of itself. They, who do not have any money, they had to take a second mortgage on their home, and to get just $20,000, to get $20,000 out, they send it to him.
They send it to a man worth 9 figures of wealth.
Yes. So
it's horrific.
He demands $20,000. Right. He's worth $500 million.
It's a rounding error for someone like Diddy.
And he demands $20,000, strong arms them out of fear for their safety or for the daughter's safety to send him $20,000, which they do. They send him the 20 grand. It sits for a few days. One of two things happen. What you're saying is interesting, and I hadn't thought about this, that he may have been advised that this is a crime and returned it.
Maybe.
The other option, which I don't know works out for him any better legally, is that he patched things up with Cassie in the meantime, and maybe she went back or maybe begged and asked, and he relented. I don't know.
I'm not sure,
but I would love to know why he returned that $20,000.
It's
I really think that he received legal advice regarding it. Yeah, he may have patched up things with Cassie and such, but I think somebody said, "Where'd you get?" Maybe his accountant or maybe his lawyer saw. I would say maybe his accountant saw this $20,000 and said, "Okay, where did this $20,000 come from?" Oh, it came, and did he confess? Oh, it came from It came from Cassie's parents with regards to Cassie's career, and because of Cassie's Cassie's affair with Kid Cudi, and counsel literally turned around and said, you know what, you better pay that money back because that's considered extortion. Yeah, I'm sure he's giving legal advice towards that, by hook or by crook. I'm sure word got to some accountant or some lawyer, and they told him, and counsel told him, or the accountant told him, you know what, pay that money back, or else you're in trouble. And if he did not pay that money back, that would be serious trouble for Diddy in this case, because then you would show that this is indeed a criminal organization if you're involved in extortion. So it's a serious crime that Diddy could have really gone down for. Let's continue.
And you're right, Cassie and he were on and off, and it might be that she said, look, you took my parents' last 20 grand, they had to get a second mortgage, can they have that back? I'll do anything you want. That's entirely possible as well. In either
or he allegedly firebombs Kid Cudi's car, and then the lawyers are like, Jesus, send the $20,000 back. This looks really bad.
It's an unbelievable picture that they're painting, and it seems to me that the prosecution is doing a rather effective job. Now, Harvey has a very different opinion of this. He believes that the racketeering charge is trumped up, and the fact that it feels trumped up will backfire on the prosecution. I just disagree. I think they are painting a horrific picture that is going to land with this.
Derek, we've got the $20,000. We've got the sex acts that we've talked about. We have the fact that he's alleged, and Kid Cudi is scheduled to take the stand later this week. So we're going to find out more about this whole allegations of firebombing his car. Lastly, we had another witness on the stand, an FBI agent who conducted the raid of Diddy's house, and they found loaded AK-15s, I believe, in Diddy's house, loaded.
With the serial numbers scratched off.
Thank you for pointing that out. I almost forgot. With the serial numbers scratched off. Does this look more and more like the traditional criminal mafioso enterprises that we're typically know about?
Yeah, you're sort of getting closer to that. I mean, he had a cache of weapons that they discovered, putting aside all the freaky baby oil, which I think makes headlines, but is ultimately not that interesting legally. The AK-47s or AK-15s, AR-15s are pretty fascinating. And scratching off serial numbers, you're starting to look like a criminal enterprise. I don't know what more you can make of it.
All right, last witness.
Yeah, I mean, that's the devil in the details, ladies and gentlemen. That really is damning against Diddy, that he had illegal guns. In his at his mansion. I don't know if it's at Star Island or in L.A. That is some serious allegations against Diddy, and something that should not be trifled with. And again, it adds to the credence that Diddy was involved in a criminal organization, especially if you have illegal guns on your premises. That is stunning. I don't know. So we're just saying the FBI agent saw that. Oh, sorry about that. Let me just get this together here. FBI agent saw that. Yeah, that is damning evidence against Diddy, that he would have indeed illegal guns on his premises at the ready to be used. That is, you can't escape that. That is something that you cannot escape. I think more than the testimony of Cassie herself, the fact that he had illegal guns at the ready, loaded, to be used at any time at his home, can give credence to the fact that Diddy was involved in a criminal enterprise. Because why would you use illegal guns if you were, if not for the fact that you were involved in a criminal organization? Tough stuff indeed, and again, a little tidbit that only adds further credence to the arguments raised by the prosecution. Let's continue.
This of the day is The Punisher. We both agree that this is the one that with the most tenuous link to actual crimes, but the most salacious testimony maybe we've heard in the trial so far.
It was extremely lurid. This is an exotic dancer who was hired by Diddy and Cassie to come to the Trump International Hotel, I believe,
in New York,
right?
Yeah.
In New York. He described this encounter as going to the hotel room. Cassie is in a robe with nothing else on. Diddy, he described as being in some sort of
at first, in this anonymous man in some sort of he describes as Muslim garb,
where you only see their eyes,
describing a hijab or a burqa, depending on the length of the garment. And he just, he doesn't know who it is at first until he sees the television
Yeah,
set.
apparently he saw a television that said, on those hotel televisions says, "Welcome, Mr. Combs, to the Trump Intercontinental,"
And then
it
starts
clicked
to
in his head.
And then he remembers seeing a picture of Cassie. He's like, "Oh my God, that's Cassie!"
Yes.
Two and two come together.
And the guy's a big fan, and he does his dances for them. He says Diddy is directing it. What he's describing is somewhat of a freak off. It turns into a sort of...
He has sex with Cassie while Diddy watches.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that is a description of things we've seen in freak offs. What it didn't do is show much coercion to me. This didn't look like a sort of dangerous scenario, not the way he describes it. He says Diddy was giving sort of soft direction, but it didn't look violent in any way.
Yeah. Some technical difficulties, but we are back. Sorry about...
Yeah, again, that the exotic dancer who danced and later had sex with Cassie, that would be... I wouldn't say that's a freak off. That's not a criminal enterprise. He may have been involved in he may have been hired within the state, and his testimony, I don't think lends credence to things. I think it speaks to the relationship between Diddy and Cassie at the time, and they were swingers, to be fair and frank. So again, these things happen among consenting swingers. Let's continue.
About that. Let's just get into comments. Let's start with Monkey Man writes, but this is all for domestic violence, which he's not being charged with. What about all the trafficking claims? Where's the evidence? Trafficking is pretty easy here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the trafficking claim is going to be the easiest one. He hired some prostitutes from across state lines and brought them over state lines. I think that's going to be a win.
Let's stop. As frustrating as that might be to somebody, because I think it's not really that much of a crime, that meets the letter of the law. You may not have sex with a prostitute, period. And if you bring them across state lines for the purpose of having sex with a prostitute and paying them for them, which the Punisher meets all those qualifications, and that's just one person, you have met the definition of human trafficking. There's no reason to say that's unfair. Whatever. The law is what it is, and that is human trafficking.
That's right. The prosecutors are after much bigger game. They want the racketeering, and they want the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. That's where the action with Cassie is. The RICO stuff is with these witnesses today. We'll see if they get anywhere.
So that leads right into Bezo Lego, who says how...
A good point raised there. Not racketeering. Human trafficking is not much of a huge crime here because it's prostitutes being brought over state lines and were paid for their services. So that is the legal definition of trafficking, and so neither here nor there. It's we're in it's a situation where there's not much crime here. Again, as he said, the big crimes are indeed involved in criminal organization, involved with racketeering, involved in storing guns at one's household for the purposes of use, and all were loaded. I mean, that speaks to much more of a criminal organization, which is the big fish in this trial. Let's continue.
How many years is he actually facing? If it's just for the human trafficking, just for the prostitution charges, probably time served and he's out.
Yeah.
Prosecutors have to get him on the bigger stuff, especially the RICO, when you're talking, theoretically, life in prison.
That's where you get the 15 years to life. If they get convictions on all of the big stuff, that's where you're hearing in media 15 years to life, and he could face that kind of time.
Yeah.
Susan says, sure, we think he's guilty, but we aren't the jury. If they want to deliberate today, I think he would walk. That's an interesting take. I have the opposite feeling. I think they have painted him as such a monster that all these little nuances about whether they've actually connected all the loops perfectly, connected the threats to specific sexual acts and things like that. I think a lot of that washes over the jury, and they think this is a guy who shouldn't be on the street.
I have to tell you, it's easy in this day and age to be sort of a contrarian, to just think, well, he's not, I think it's harder as members of the jury when you start breaking down the individual pieces of evidence. It's very hard when you're doing a civic duty like that. It's much harder to be the contrarian. You actually do follow the evidence. And the evidence, to me, at this point, seems pretty overwhelming. The prosecutors still have some work to do, but I don't think they're going to have that much trouble doing it now. That said, we haven't heard the defense put on their case in chief yet. We don't know what the witnesses are going to say. If they have evidence that really undermines Cassie's entire testimony, I will change my views. But where I stand right now, I think it'd be a guilty.
The other thing I'd say...
Excellent point raised there. As I stated before, the defense has yet to put their case forward. We don't know what sort of reasonable doubt it'll cast in the minds of the jury. and so that remains to be seen. However, what the prosecution is putting on right now, indeed, especially by bringing on that FBI agent, that was sort of a stunning reveal there that Diddy had illegal guns at his house, fully loaded and ready to go. I mean, it shows that he's a part of a criminal organization. And a lot of these sex workers that are involved, a lot of the witnesses, including Cassie's parents. Actually, I should be writing down the witness, indeed, including Cassie's parents here. They are all speaking to the fact that Diddy was involved in the. They're all stating that that Diddy was the head of the snake, that is the criminal organization, was the hub of the wheel that was the criminal organization, and so we are left with the truth that Diddy may have indeed. The prosecution are living up to their allegations that Diddy was involved in a criminal organization, an enterprise. But again, the defense have yet to have their witnesses come to the stand and refute said allegations. Let's continue.
Is we are reviewing this through the sterile lens of news stories. We hear what happened in court. When you're sitting in there and you're listening to the tearful testimony of a pregnant woman for 4 days straight, that's different than us reading about it and thinking about all the legal nuances. I think it really hits people very, very hard on that jury. It remains to be seen if they'll ultimately get a conviction. But remember, this is not a televised trial like OJ. This is something that we're learning what happens after the court day, and that's very different than sitting in there.
Emily says, do both sides need to say who they're going to call to the stand at the start of trial? Can they add?
Okay, so again, I think we can stop there with regards to DMD's coverage of the trial. And excellent work there by by Jason Beckerman and Mr. Kaufman on this, doing wonderful work in these YouTube streets. And again, thank you very much to TMZ for this recap of the last few days. And we are here now in day 11. Of the Diddy trial. We are just hustling through. Well, it's day 11, but it really is day 8 because the trial really started last Monday. We're here on, I would say 7 days in. Again, because there were opening statements. There was jury selection. So we're really in day 7. We just completed day 7 of the trial. So again, but day 11, because they are considering opening arguments and also jury selection before this trial even got underway, which got underway last Monday. So let's get into this part here, falling just after the testimony of Cassie Ventura. We are going to speak to the manosphere piece of this discussion here, where indeed Cassie had a part to play in these freak-offs. She wasn't exactly innocent in these freak-offs, and so and even though Diddy was involved in some unnecessary and criminal type activity, and was and definitely a Svengali, and threatened Cassie on certain occasions to commit acts that he wanted her to do. The fact of the matter is, Cassie played a part in these activities herself. And so we're going to speak to Manosphere Highlights Daily in regards to. So we're not going to hold Cassie accountable. The Diddy trial's missing truth, and again, it's being washed over by a lot of testimony played forward by the prosecution here, but also the defense did a pretty good job in establishing that Cassie was not exactly a babe in the woods with regards to these crimes. And we're going to discuss indeed how Cassie should be viewed for this trial, and the fact that she is not an innocent at all. So let's get into this video from Manosphere Highlights Daily, doing wonderful things in YouTube streets. And thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. Let's just finish this up good and strong. Let's go.
Final question, is there anything that you may want to confess tonight before you go in? keep everything right here. There you go. Or right here.
In New York City, defense attorneys for Sean Combs began their cross-examination of his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
These text messages definitely show kind of this eagerness to participate, the desire to be in his circle, the desire to be loved by him.
Please read this 1364.
I haven't talked to you at all. You don't even try. You rush me off the phone. I'm really hurt. I don't need your money. I need some attention.
You wanted your special time with Mr. Combs?
Yes.
I know the other guys, they've been talking about the way I do what I do.
They've asked me, hey, how do you feel? Were you heartbroken?
If you don't know who this is Ryan. This is Ryan Leslie, Cassie's ex-boyfriend before the arrival of Sean P. Diddy Combs.
Puff took your girl, whatever it was.
To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown.
Welcome to Manosphere Highlights Daily, where we give men what the mainstream won't, the raw, uncomfortable truth. This isn't just about Diddy. This is about you, your reputation, your freedom, your bank account. Because if you're a man with something to lose, one consensual text can become courtroom evidence tomorrow. And no one will care about the full story, just the narrative. Let's break down what really came out in court and why you need to wake the hell up. Now it's time for us to get into this and do what we gotta do. Because we men, ain't we? We men, ain't we?
Let's get into the text messages because, like you mentioned, those are so very interesting, and they pointed to one text from Cassie to Diddy that said, quote, "I'm always ready to freak off," relating to some of these sexual escapades there taking place between the two.
Well, I think that the whole thing was, they were trying to show that these freak offs, which, just to remind everybody, it involved her having sex with another man while Diddy watched. And then what they added to that today, what she said, she goes, yeah, and of course the text messages too were entered into evidence saying this, that after they would have these freak offs where he's watching her have sex with other men, she says, oh, then we would make love. And I love those sessions. I love the way we make love after the FOs, which was after the freak offs.
In court today, Cassie, under oath, was forced to read her own words, not testimony, text messages, emails, love letters. I'm always ready to freak off. I need your attention, not your money. You're my husband. I want to give you the same. These weren't cries for help. They were romantic, intimate, voluntary. She said she initiated freak-offs herself because she wanted to be close to him. She said she wanted to give him a baby. She said she was in love. So now that the cameras are rolling, it's abuse?
So it fascinated me at the time that she actually filed that publicly and he settled it the next day. That unfortunately was pretty telling, that he didn't put up any fight on the lawsuit. He didn't even want to litigate it. He didn't even want to go to discovery. He wanted to settle it immediately.
And if he would have...
Again, very good point raised by the expert lawyer here from Law and Crime. For Diddy to automatically say, here's $30 million for your silence. Again, this is that is the locomotives that really started this whole trial against Diddy by the feds in its entirety. There's no doubt about that. Without that lawsuit, there is no Diddy trial. That civil lawsuit by Cassie and the fact that she received $13 million, and realized that, oh, listen, we're going to get into it. Let's just get further into this as we go on. But again, this it indeed can be considered a shakedown, to be fair and frank. Even though there were crimes committed against Cassie, absolutely. There was abuse committed against Cassie, but there's a bit of a Machiavellian moment here by Cassie that is totally blown aside by the fact that she was a victim and also that she is pregnant, so there was sympathy on her side for and during this trial, especially during her testimony. Let's continue.
settled it before she filed it, I think we would have been in a very different position than we are today.
Remember, Cassie didn't press charges. She didn't call 911. She sued. And what did she get? $30 million. That's not justice. That's a business deal. And it triggered...
It was a business deal. To be fair and frank, she did not force criminal charges with regards to rape. She wanted to get paid. She wanted a nest egg for herself and her ex, for her husband, Alex Fine, so that they could start a new life together, so that he can stop, so they didn't have to be supported on his personal trainer salary and on her dwindling career and the fact and her alleged, I wouldn't say alleged, her music career, which was dwindling at the time. She's about to go on tour, and then she realized, you know what? I have all this ammunition against Diddy. I'm gonna take it to the bank, and I'm gonna get paid for it. And so that'll create our nest egg. And don't be fooled that Cassie didn't think of this from the start. She said she wanted to get paid. It wasn't gonna happen through Diddy, so she had all these secrets, and she revealed them. And Diddy said, you know what? We're gonna. That's where she got her $30 million. A shrewd move on the part of Cassie, but do not be blind by the fact that Cassie wanted that money so that she would not have to work anymore. Let's continue.
A wave of Me Too cases stacked on Diddy's name. Just like that, she went from ex-girlfriend to federal star witness. And we're supposed to believe this is just about trauma? Nah, this is about timing, optics, and opportunism.
The video is just so helpful to show that at some point she changed her mind. If she did in fact originally want to be a part of the freakouts, at some point later on down the road, she did not. And exactly what you said is true. If you agree to have consensual sex 99 times and then the 100th time you say no, it is.
It began.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the key to this whole civil lawsuit, especially not only Diddy and Shannon Sharpe, but all other high-profile men put to trial, including Harvey Weinstein, including name your celebrity, including Johnny Depp. All of these people are being asked to pay for ladies' lifestyles going forward. And as the lady already said, if you could say there could be 99 yeses, but if there is one no, that could cost you your life. That can cost you your livelihood. It is so important that men understand that they are not immune from a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to change her mind, and you paying the price for it. As Shannon Sharpe did here, they may have had consensual sex before, but the lady was an OnlyFans girl and wanted to get paid. So guess what? Who's the sucker now? She turned the story around, saw him as an abuser, shakedown. Shannon Sharpe had already gave the lady. Let me just get her name. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Gabriella Zuniga. There you go. It is Gabriella Zuniga. So Gabriella Zuniga saw a sucker, and she took it for what it's worth. And now he not only lost a $100 million deal, but also has to deal with a $50 million lawsuit. Now, I don't think she's going to get that money, but she's going to get a good portion of it because she's already turned down $10 million. So it's something that men have to realize, that your lives can be changed in an instant simply because of a woman's whim, and that is a dangerous place to be. Let's continue.
And as a consensual relationship when she was 20 years old. She also accuses Sharpe of a violent sexual assault and rape in October of last year and again in January of this year. The complaint seeks more than $50 million in damages. Sharpe fired back, posting alleged texts from the woman in the lawsuit on social media. One of them reads, "I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're effing me."
Shannon Sharp is now facing the exact same weapon. A woman he role-played with is now suing him for $50 million, claiming it stopped being consensual after the fact. Let that sink in. You can be deep in the fantasy, mutual, wild, explicit, and the moment she feels different, you're a predator. The messages don't matter. The consent doesn't matter. Her feelings rewrite history, and no one's stopping it. But here's the thing. This isn't just about sex. This is marriage too.
Again, your feelings rewrite history. I think there's Manosphere Highlights Daily. It couldn't put it better himself. It's her feelings changed history. It changed Diddy's history. Diddy was a media mogul until Cassie's feelings changed. She realized she's in a relationship where she's not going to make a lot of money. She realizes that that her personal trainer husband wasn't going to bring her to the lifestyle that she wanted. So what did she do? She had all this ammunition and used it against Diddy. She cashed in. It was a civil lawsuit, $30 million in her hand, and the fact that she could sink his, stop Diddy from seeing the light of day for a long, long time by participating in a U.S. attorney criminal action against Diddy himself and Bad Boy Records et al. It's all because a woman decided, you know what? I'm going to cash in. Same thing with Shannon Sharp. Had a consensual sexual relationship with a 19-year-old. Should have known better. But she decided, you know what? He's not going to give me a baby that I want. $25,000 per cheek, what I want. I'm going to sue him, and I'm going to get that money back. All because a woman was scorned, and you know what? You didn't cover your ass. As a man, you didn't cover your ass, and you let your loins, and you let your bravado, and you let your arrogance lead you to a fall. Men in 2025, now more than ever, women are looking for a free lick. And if you're going to supply that, so be it, ladies and gentlemen. So again, it is a dangerous activity that we are involved with, and you know what? It's men have to protect themselves at all times, and being involved in these compromising positions, they need to be avoided at all costs, especially if you have something to lose. Let's continue.
Percent of divorces are filed by women, not because of abuse, not because of infidelity, often just because she doesn't feel it anymore. The love dried up, the thrill's gone, she walks. But when a man wants to walk away, he pays alimony, child support, sometimes his house, his retirement, and maybe his mental health. Same formula. Her emotions decide when it's over, but your punishment kicks in after she's done feeling. So whether it's a bedroom or a courtroom, the lesson is the same. If you don't protect yourself, your consent doesn't matter. Your story doesn't matter. Only hers does.
And then on these drugs, and that both she and Combs had these drug addictions, but the idea, she claims that she drove him to a hospital in 2012 because he had OD'd, and that's the first that we're really hearing about anything like that, Andy. But part of the defense strategy to say, hey, were they the perfect couple? Not by a long shot. Was there a lot of abuse? Yes, Combs has admitted that, but it was domestic violence. There was a lot of drug use, but this was not sex trafficking. So they're trying to create that picture and portray that picture, Andy.
In court, they brought...
And again, remember, this could be mutual affray, ladies and gentlemen. This could be mutual affray in many of these circumstances. They don't bring to light the fact that Cassie may have instigated a lot of these fights. That may never come to the light of day because Diddy's already pretty much... incriminating himself with the freak-offs, incriminating himself with having illegal guns on his property, and involved himself with racketeering and being head of a criminal enterprise, even though it's not necessarily, but using legal means to do illegal acts. That is a criminal enterprise as well. But that is all washed over by the fact that Cassie organized some of these freak-offs. Cassie may have could be seen as a possessive woman. Cassie could be seen as a woman who wanted to profit from her career with Diddy, even though it may not have been one in the first place. Remember, she signed a 10-album deal with Diddy, and she only made one. So she wanted to cash in. She had all this evidence against him, and she filed a civil lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen. Not a criminal one. She lost a civil one, because if she was so aggrieved, she would have lost a criminal action against Diddy. She did not do that. She lost a civil action because she wanted to get paid. And a lot of women are indeed doing that. They're going away from the fact that there was criminal activity, going away from the fact that there was abuse, and they are using the civil action as being their get back. Make no mistake, Cassie was a victim, absolutely, but she didn't want to see Diddy. Well, now she's seeing Diddy. Wants to see she's getting the added bonus of seeing Diddy being thrown in jail through his criminal enterprise and organization with the help of the U.S. government. However, all she wanted to do was get paid. This is an added bonus, and she may never launch a criminal action against Diddy. Never, because she's already been paid. She's happy. She's living her life, a smile on her face. She's pregnant. She's moving on with her life with a nest egg created by the one and only Sean Puffy Combs. Let's continue.
Brought up the 2016 hallway incident. Yes, the one on video. But here's what's wild. Cassie says she and Diddy were using MDMA. She was upset about a freak off before a premiere. She texted about lining up a male escort herself. That's not trafficking. That's dysfunction. That's mutual madness, not unilateral abuse. And now she claims the drugs were bad, but can't remember who got them. Sounds like selective memory. Sounds like victim positioning.
You were dating Mr. Leslie. How much older than you was he?
10 years.
Then you traveled to Miami with Mr. Combs. The flyer of the event was just a cover to spend time with Mr. Combs, right?
That's true.
You had a tattoo of Mr. Leslie's initials on your body, right?
Yes.
How many tattoos did you have then?
At this moment, the prosecution objected on the grounds of relevance. The judge overruled it and said, but let's keep it moving.
3.
The one on your arm?
No regrets.
They've asked me, hey, how do you...
Again! Kathy Ventura was cheating on Ryan Leslie with Diddy. And they formulated an elaborate scheme so that she could fly off at the age of, I would say, between 19 and 21 in order to have affairs and sex with Diddy. Believe me, she knew exactly what she was doing. She may have been 19, but she wasn't a babe in the woods, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, she was down for freak-offs to begin with. The first few years of freak-offs absolutely was a co-conspirator, if not a willing participant. Do not get it twisted. Cassie makes out like a bandit in this trial. And it's serendipitous that she's pregnant at the time of her testimony. So that gives her even more sympathy. Throwing Diddy under the bus even further. He's lost millions to her. He's lost his credibility, his reputation, all because of these freak-offs. Now, again, not to say that Diddy wasn't a co-conspirator in this, not to say that Diddy was a harbinger to his own demise here. Absolutely. But don't say that Cassie was a babe in the woods. She was not. She was not. She was cold, calculated, realized what she had, and said, I may have been abused, but I'm going to get paid for it. And so she did. Let's continue.
Were you heartbroken? Puff took your girl, whatever it was. I understand when a story or a narrative is not for me. And once it was no longer for me, then there were other narratives and stories for me to invest my time, energy, and resources into. So from even me being in Harvard that young, I never acquired a taste for alcohol, for drugs, for partying. So that's actually how I met Cassie, because I was like, yo, I'm a big producer now. I'm going to the club, whatever.
And let's not pretend she was some wide-eyed, innocent girl. Before Diddy, Cassie was with Ryan Leslie, a respected artist, 10 years older. She cheated on him with Diddy. She had his initials tattooed on her body, and then she upgraded. Hypergamy, that's the real story. She wasn't groomed, she was climbing. And when the ride ended and the spotlight dimmed, she flipped the script.
Fair to say his...
There you go, and she did it again. She not only did it once, she did it twice. Remember, she did it to Ryan Leslie, and then, in a kind of sort of way, she did it to Diddy because she got paid. She allowed for the life with her life with Alex Fine to continue simply because Diddy paid for it. Diddy bankrolled it once again, as allegedly always. Diddy's been with the money man in terms of not only paying for her to be with Diddy, paying for Cassie to be with Diddy, but also paying for Cassie to be with Alex Fine. $30 million is a lifetime supply of money so that Alex Fine doesn't need a job anymore. Cassie doesn't need a job anymore. If they invest their money wisely, they're set for life. They set their kids up for life through this $30 million, because most people won't see that in a lifetime. So do not think that Cassie wasn't cold and calculating through this whole process. Believe me, she took the lumps because she knew she was going to get paid later. Remember, she had consensual sex 11 years into the relationship with Diddy. Now, a psychologist would speak to the disorder that was involved in that, but still, she loved the lifestyle Diddy created for her, and didn't want to lose it, because she knew that there was only one Diddy, and she will never get that chance again. But lo and behold, who's providing for her lifestyle now? The man in question. The man that she wants to send to jail for 15 years to life. Make that make sense.
His career was ruined after your lawsuit?
I can understand that.
In court today, the defense asked Cassie, is it fair to say you ruined his career? Her answer, I could understand that. Let that marinate. She knows this story is burning Diddy's name to the ground, and maybe he deserves fire for some of it. But don't hand her a halo when she was dancing in the flames too.
I think one of the...
Excellent point. She was dancing in the flames. She was burning in the flames, as Diddy once said in Credit Mac remix Flavoring Year. Quote, she is burning in the flames. She was part of the escapades. Believe me, she was a willing participant for many of them. Many of them. She grew tired of them after a while, but she was a willing participant, especially through the first few years. She loved the freak-offs. And it's been proven with the text messages revealed by in the cross-examination of Cassie as well. She's not an innocent in this, but she played this to the letter, to the T, and Diddy's paying for it. He's burning through the flames now. It's very fearful if Diddy's can get his name and reputation back ever again after this trial. And a lot of people, not only Cassie, but many other women, were at the trough themselves, seeing if they can get their own piece of the pie. But a lot of those cases were thrown out due to lack of evidence, but this one stuck. And believe me, Diddy's going to pay for it big time. Let's continue.
Biggest takeaways right now is Cassie saying, I want a baby with you. And at that point, Diddy already had 6 children, but she still said, I want a baby with you. So the defense really trying to show...
We all know why Cassie wanted a baby with Diddy. Because it basically cinches the lineage with said high-value men. Once you have a baby with It's like 50 Cent said, have a baby by me, baby, be a millionaire. Except she didn't have to necessarily go to such lengths well, she had to go through a few lengths to be a millionaire, but she could have gone through another route, and that was having a baby. She wanted to be the wife of Sean P. Diddy Combs because of the lifestyle that he provided. He was a high-value man. There was only one Diddy. And by any means, she wanted to be pregnant. Same as with Shannon Sharp. Same as with any woman in of a certain lifestyle. Same thing with Jay-Z. Same thing with any high value man out there. Once they know that you are worth what you're worth, oh yeah, they want a baby right away. Absolutely did. He had 6 kids already. Make it a 7th. As I've already stated, a woman would rather be a side chick to a high-value man, be a main chick to an average guy. And case in point, here again, Cassie Ventura. Don't believe me, she suffered abuse, absolutely. However, she was not an innocent in any of these proceedings. Let's continue.
The jury saying, look, she was actively involved in the swinger lifestyle, and she said she loved freak-offs and that she loved to plan them and was also offering up suggestions as well during the course here of the planning stages for these freak-offs. So,
and believe me, this revelation, due to this revelation, allegedly Alex Fine had to leave the courtroom. He couldn't believe that his wife, the mother of his child, was involved in all of this, well, sordid business. He couldn't believe he's marrying a freak. And believe me, she's a freak. Cassie Ventura is a freak. There was no gun to his head on many of these occasions. She's a freak. Yep. And Alex Fine said, I'm with her? Yep, you are. Yep. But again, can you say that Diddy groomed her to be such? Yeah, you could, but she did a bit of organizing herself. She liked what Diddy did. Remember, she said, I'm down for the freak-offs. I'm down for whatever. Right. Coincidence? I think not.
That is a major takeaway that we are getting from today that is in direct opposition to what we heard yesterday.
Gentlemen, hear me clearly. The game has changed. The rules are unwritten, and your receipts won't save you when the court of public opinion decides you're guilty. This isn't about sex. It's about power, control, damage. You could have love letters, text messages, videos. None of it will matter because she can wake up one day and rewrite history. And if she has a motive, you're the villain. End of story. This channel is here to arm you with truth, not comfort. This is.
Do remember now that if Diddy wasn't Diddy, then he wouldn't be. Let me just end this here quickly here on Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I see this again, and we're going to go a 4th time into this. Unbelievable. SD discard, and we're going to try it one more time because I want to end the live. Unbelievable that we got to deal with here on YouTube. Maybe they're shutting me down for speaking again out against Cassie, which is amazing, but there you go. Somebody really wants Diddy to go down, and clearly it's Instagram. Anyways. So we're gonna sum up this video in the sense that yes, Cassie did take part in very many depravitous acts. Cassie was indeed a victim of abuse in certain circumstances, but do let it be said that Cassie was a willing participant in many of these instances, and she got paid for it. Knowing that she had a career that may not have been as lucrative, period, if done through a legitimate means. But since she was with Diddy and since she bore witness to said acts a lawsuit that would cover her and her ex, who was a personal trainer, for life. I think that suits the bill. Not only that, she can watch her ex burn, his reputation destroyed, his means of income taken away simply because of this trial. So she had the ultimate act of revenge through this trial. Now again, is Diddy a harbinger of his own demise? Absolutely. But don't think for a second that Cassie wasn't a co-conspirator in many ways, shapes, and forms. Let's continue and finish up here.
Isn't anti-woman, it's pro-survival. Diddy may be guilty of a lot, but Cassie is not just a victim. She's a player in this story. And if we keep giving women free passes to rewrite their pasts, no man is safe. Watch your back, watch your texts, watch your heart, because that's how they get in. And once you're in, the game is stacked. Man.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for Manosphere Highlights Daily, doing wonderful things in the YouTube streets. A very good counter argument to the Diddy case, in the sense that Cassie got paid, ladies and gentlemen, legitimately, by hook or by crook. She got paid $30 million, so that she got a lovely nest egg, along with the ultimate revenge of seeing her ex being thrown in jail for the time being, and also in custody, but also the potential of seeing Diddy in jail for a considerable amount of time. And we thank you, Manosphere Highlights Daily. But the fact that you are on this list shows that you are indeed a success. Shows that you are indeed a high value man. So, but again, do watch your back, because if that's the case, women have a way to tear you down, just like Delilah did Samson. And it's a tale as old as time, ladies and gentlemen. A woman can destroy you as well as build you up. So do remember that going forward. But let's just end things here on Talk Live tonight. So we are still going back to the full cam, where we're going to end things right now. So we're still going through testimony for the prosecution. We've already been updated with, I think, 4 more witnesses, including Kenny Morgan, David James, Cassie Ventura's parents, an FBI agent, and an exotic dancer whose names were not revealed as of yet. But again, we're still going through the testimony of the prosecution, and so that is where we stand right now. But again, the prosecution, for what it's worth, are laying out a compelling case, including that bombshell that Diddy had scratched off illegal arms in his household, fully loaded and ready to go, showing that indeed he was a part of a criminal enterprise. You had David James, the Diddy assistant, stating that Diddy carried out actions that were akin to a criminal organization. FBI agents stating about the guns and about the raid on Diddy's property, and the exotic dancer who said that Diddy paid him for his services. So, but that's a minor detail in and of itself. So the prosecution is still laying out its case as we speak. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live. We're going to continue this on Thursday. I will not have a show tomorrow. I'll be at the J game. I need a little R&R with with the boys this summer. No Diddy. But it's always good to be here on Talk Live, laying out the Diddy case. Days 7 through 11, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue things here. But thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live. And thank you for being here during the interruptions with Instagram, because quite simply, they are clearly in the corner of Cassie Ventura, especially with all these interruptions. But we will be back on Thursday night with another recap and more Talk Live. So do stay tuned for promos, and we look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. Thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live, and we're going to finally say goodnight here on IG for real. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. And thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live here on YouTube. This will be uploaded right away. And we are looking forward to speaking to you again on Thursday night. Another recap of the Diddy trial and more things going forward. So do check your promos here on IG and on YouTube and on TikTok with regards to our next show. So thank you very much for joining me in Talk live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Sponsored by DoneTalkDUNTLK.com. Spring, summer,